And last night at the close of business, Deputy Walsh and Cleary and Deputy Ring here brought up about the problems in Mayo and the Owen Winnie farm. And the reason Deputy Ring is here beside me, we're standing in solidarity with the people that have worked on that farm, Minister, where there's 31 turbines gone up. There's 3 or 4 more left to go up. There is contractors in Mayo owed 1.3 million, 1.4 million. And funnily enough, some of these contractors were fit to build airports years ago when the country hadn't a lot of money. And funnily enough, they were good enough to do roadworks right around the country. But ironically, the DSB in Bordnamona that's doing this job have decided, since the receiver was appointed, to bring people from the north down to look at finishing this job. 2 northern companies, one of them has a bit of association with a large corporate here in this country, but the other has none. And there is companies employing a lot of people in the west of Ireland. Basically, Roadbridge was a name. They had people with suits looking after the job. But the work on the ground was being done by what we call local subcontractors. There's 4 or 5 million owed, at least, to those subcontractors. And bear in mind that the DSB is connected to the government, and so is Bordnamona. So it's taxpayers' money that we are talking about. And we talk about the future and the wind energy future. And Minister, it is disgusting, and there's something not right, that those subcontractors who joined together, the workers that were with Roadbridge, the contractors that were supplying everything, both materials and machines, went together and put in a proposal to this so-called director that's over this wind farm belonging to the DSB. And ironically enough, Deputy Ring and myself are 2 weeks contacting, going through the liaison or going through the channels we're supposed to go through to contact this person for a meeting. But whoever they think they are, or how high up they think they are, they don't think it's good enough to even come back to us or say that they will have a meeting. A proposal has gone in by the group who are well fit to do the work, because the 27 that's built at the moment, it was them that done it. That's the bottom line. There is companies will not survive if you lose 1.3 or 4 million on one job. And bear in mind, and I'd like the DSB to hear this very clearly, and Bordnamona, that on the bottom of the docket, the goods and services that were supplied are owned by them and unpaid for. So let the DSB and Bordnamona hear that clearly.
Thank you, Deputy.
And then they insult this group of people by bringing down others to look at finishing the job. There is a retention of 4 to 5 million left. There is solutions to this. I do welcome, and I have to acknowledge Matt in Deputy Varadkar's office. He liaised with us and the Irish plant contractors in the last few weeks to help sort out the problems for workers. But we will not, and I'll be very clear, it's not in my constituency, but all of those deputies, and including myself, let no one think they're going to come from the north, and the government must intervene and basically turn over companies in the west of Ireland who are well capable of doing the job. I am asking you, will you and your government intervene with the ESB and Bordnamona to bring a bit of common sense and bring some of these so-called directors back to ground?
Thank you, Deputy Fitzmaurice.
Thank you very much, Deputy Fitzmaurice, for raising the issue, and I also acknowledge the interest of Deputy Ring and Deputy Dillon and indeed Deputy Cleary, and I'm sure others in relation to this issue as well. Deputy Conway Walsh, of course, and others in relation to this issue and the appointment. Well, Deputy, I'm referring to the people who've raised it with me. If you want me to give you a straight answer. First of all, just to acknowledge, Deputy, the enormous impact that the appointment of the receivers has had on the employees and you have recognised the work of the Department of Enterprise, Trade and Employment and indeed the Department of Social Protection in ensuring that the employees are being looked after in that respect. And you've raised specifically the knock-on impacts of subcontractors. I know that clarification was issued by the receiver to Roadbridge staff on Tuesday of last week, and following engagement with the Department of Enterprise, Trade and Employment, the receiver confirmed to employees there is no statutory restriction on employees taking up additional employment during a statutory redundancy consultation period in circumstances where they are not expected to attend the workplace. So provided they do not resign from their current employment, there should be no obstacle to retaining their statutory redundancy entitlements. As a government, we are examining the range of projects that Roadbridge has been involved in from a public capital works point of view and in relation to the National Development Plan. There is, for example, a housing project in Oireachtas in Limerick. There is a road project as well in Coona to Knockalishin, and of course Roadbridge were appointed as the contractors for the N5 Ballahadreen to Scramogue Road as well, where a site compound had been set up and some subcontractors had started to mobilise. In relation to the O'Ninny wind farm, my understanding is it is a joint venture, 50-50 joint venture between the ESB and Bord na Móna. And given that receivers have now been appointed, that is a regulated process which has to take its course under the Companies Acts, and I have no doubt that the contractors concerned will be obtaining their own independent advice. But we would of course encourage engagement and encourage discussions. We recognise that the appointment of receivers can have seriously adverse effects on contractors, many of whom are operating in an environment now of rising costs and quite low margins. And we want to see all of these contractors to continue in business. But the receivership is a statutory process. It is regulated by law. The receivers are now in place and they have to continue with their work over the period ahead. But certainly, as a government, we would encourage that there would be discussions and engagement between all the relevant parties to see if a resolution can be identified.
Thank you, Minister. Now we have a minute, Deputy Fitzmaurice.
Yeah, Minister, I thank you for what you said. I acknowledge myself, Department of Enterprise and Social Protection and all that. We're moving to phase 2 in this, and I do recognise about a receiver. But isn't it ironic that the ESB were able to bring down 2 northern contractors to look at finishing the job, because the job at the moment is standing, as you can understand, when someone goes into receivership. And they were able to bring 2 different northern contractors to look at finishing this job, while they had the people that was well able to do the job right beside them. There is something amiss in what's going on in this. The receivers seem to be parked to the side. Wouldn't you think if someone was owed $1.5 million or $1.25 million, that someone from the receiver's office or from the ESB or from Quilch or from the Bord na Móna would ring them? It's the least they could do. What I'm saying to you, Minister, is Eamon Ryan's department is climate action. We need an enterprise to get involved in resolving this issue. Because I'm making it very clear, and Deputy Ring will echo what I'm saying. Let no one think that they'll be going in with diggers from Northern Ireland down to the Oireachtas farm.
It won't happen.
And the contractors down there owed $4 million. There's retention. I know what the retention is. I saw the contracts, to be quite frank about it. And if I was a receiver, I'd worry.
Please.
So I will say to you, Minister, that someone needs to talk to the CEO of the ESB and get them back to realism, that the contractors in the west of Ireland and the employees will be left working. Thank you.
Major point. Thank you, Minister.
Yeah, thanks very much, Deputy. Both bodies, as you know, are commercial state bodies under the remit of Minister Ryan's department, and Minister Ryan will be alerted to the fact that you have raised it here on the floor of the House today, and I'm sure we'll respond to you directly in that regard as well. You've made it clear the strength of feeling that there is on the ground in relation to this issue. It is always incredibly difficult when a receivership process is entered into, and there can be losers and there can be victims. And we hear your strong desire to ensure that the local contractors who have been part of this important local project are not among those victims. And all that I can do is ask on behalf of the government that there would be engagement between all of the relevant parties involved here. Our first priority was to ensure that the employees were looked after, that their rights were vindicated, and I think the relevant departments have worked together in that regard. And we are also concerned, of course, about the outcome in relation to all of this for the subcontractors concerned, and I hope that their needs and their situation will be taken into account, albeit recognising it is a statutory process now that is governed by law.
Thank you. That